The United States withdrew from Afghanistan in 2021, 2 decades after it entered conflict there. During those 2 decades, women made historic achievements in combat roles throughout their military service. We're here today talking to one of those women and some work she's done since she left the service. Riane, can you tell us a little about yourself and some of the work you're doing now?
My name is Riane Donoho. I'm a corporal in the United States Marine Corps. I'm from Los Angeles originally and joined the Marine Corps at 19, where I became an administrative clerk at MCAS Miramar, also known as Top Gun to a lot of people. I was selected in 2010 for a special team that was on the forefront of introducing women into the combat zone. The team was called the Female Engagement Team, and they chose about 50 of us from the West Coast to participate on this team. We received 3 months of training to include cultural, etiquette, medical training, combat lifesaver, full shooting package, and a lot of other crash courses on infantry training and such to prepare us to deploy to Afghanistan in two-man teams.
And while you're in Afghanistan, you had a lot of really interesting experiences, some of which kind of formed a basis, or what we might call an origin story, for a project you're doing now. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience in Afghanistan?
The origin story for the legacy team is Lioness in Iraq. That was generally a stationary undertaking, searching women and children at entry checkpoints and vehicle checkpoints. It was such a successful program that they evolved it to the Female Engagement Team, whereby we went mobile and embedded in line companies and communities all around Helmand Province in Afghanistan. I was in rural Afghanistan, in Garmsir, and on a significant engagement, my teammate and I went into a compound where the women and children wanted to do my makeup. And the way they did makeup, then and even now in rural places in Afghanistan is a little bit more colorful than what we might see here in America. Upon leaving that engagement, one of the lance corporals who was holding a secure perimeter asked if I wanted to take my makeup off before we patrolled back to the PB. My response was, no, I'm good. And he said, okay, Dollface. And it was sort of born in that moment.
Well, that's interesting. You have a very personal kind of contact with the population. I mean, they're touching your face, but you're also connecting, with, I'm sure, young girls, and the women can kind of laugh and smile and kind of take some tension off this very kind of like somewhat sometimes tense, interaction you guys are experiencing.
Absolutely. And growing up in Los Angeles, my mom I grew up across the street from Sony Studios, and filmmaking is sort of, the lifeblood of industry there in Culver City. My mom did hair and makeup in the industry, and it actually hadn't occurred to me even long after Dollface was born that what I ended up bonding with the women and children over in Afghanistan would be makeup. So it certainly was it provided a little bit more of a lighthearted experience for me.
So you encountered a lot of amazing stories and had a lot of great experiences with others in Afghanistan. You decided to kind of maybe capture that and memorialize it in a way. That comes into Dollface, the Dollface House initiative. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Having been somebody who grew up always very interested in history and religion, I had a dream to write a book where each chapter would essentially be one of my friends from FET and allow that to be my contribution to historic record. In 2021, unfortunately, I lost a really good friend, Sergeant Joseph Mad Dog Myers, who was with 3-5 in Sangin, Afghanistan. And, his death and funeral service really made me reflect on my life and think about the trajectory of my life. And the Dollhouse Institute wasn't just a dream anymore. It really became a duty for me to preserve the women's voices who participated on these teams for historic record. A few days later, I started my LLC and started to build my website bit by bit, element by element. I have really done this from the ground up by myself, hoping to get it to a place that, I can pursue this research with these women and allow them a platform to speak for themselves on their experiences, and offer a couple prompts for reflection so that they have a space to reflect on their life experience. and their efforts in the war.
So tell us a little about some of the interview subjects you've had for the initiative. Kind of who have you talked to, and kind of what kind of stories are you trying to preserve of theirs?
My first interview was with the commander of the Afghan Female Tactical Platoon. And the way the commander answered, "What does the term democracy mean to you?" was a significant finding and became the climax of my first episode and film. So that first episode that I did with her is the subject of a documentary that I'm working on. I did a screening on August 31st, which is the 3-year anniversary of the Afghan withdrawal. She attended, another Afghan female tactical platoon member attended. My teammate Sage, who you met at Media Day at the Marine Corps Museum, also came, as well as my interpreter who was stuck in Afghanistan during the withdrawal in 2021. It was a really powerful moment, but I realized this isn't done. I have a lot more work to do to make this a more holistic piece. And so I'm continuing to work on that as a documentary.
What do you hope these stories could do for, say, someone of the next generation, or maybe even longer down the road?
I want the next generation to know what it's like, what it sounds like for someone to be patriotic and proud of their service and consider maybe a service of their own. As far as young women and such are concerned, I want young women to learn and hear from the women themselves, the trailblazers themselves, that they can do it. They can do anything they set their mind to. And even when things are hard, not to quit. I think that's what I'm really hoping for the next generation, is for young women to choose the hard thing and keep pushing and not quit.